Hi and welcome to the lesson. My name is Mr. French and today we're going to be looking at point of view. So I want to start with covering what we're going to get to in this lesson. So by the end of the lesson today, students should be able to, one, define point of view, a narrative perspective. Two, we want to be able to describe all the different types of point of view. So we'll look at first person, second person. Third person is the one that we'll dig into a little more. It has a couple different categories. There's third person limited, third person omniscient, and third person objective. And then finally, we'll do a little practice with identifying point of view in a passage. And then on the bottom is just the standard that we'll work with. Determining point of view is something that you need to be able to do in all the text that you're reading. So just defining point of view, we want to be looking for who is telling a story when we start reading it. So for ourselves, we need to decide what's the narrator's position in relation to the story. Are they someone who's a part of the story? Are they someone who's outside of the story and telling it? And then how much information is that narrator willing to give us? Are they letting us know what's going on in their head? Are they letting us know what's going on in all the characters' heads? So that's how we'll see the different types of point of view. So one thing to keep in mind when you're looking for what point of view is it in, to make sure that you're looking at the difference between dialogue and narration. A lot of times they can look similar because you're getting characters' thoughts, but dialogue is only when a character is speaking. Narration is when the narrator is giving information. One thing you can look for to see that difference is quotation marks. So whenever you see something in quotation marks, you know that it's dialogue and not narration. So in the example below, it says help, that's in quotation marks. And then my cousin Jack said, that's our narrator giving perspective on what's going on there. So keep in mind, when you see quotation marks, that's dialogue. You're not going to use that to identify what point of view or what narration it is. So first person is the one we'll start with first. First person is when the narrator is actually a character in the story, and one way that I'll talk about to differentiate between the different types of point of view is looking for the adjectives. So in first person, the adjectives we're going to use are I, me, my, mine, and so on. So when you see those, you can automatically tell yourself, okay, I'm looking at first person point of view. The thing with first person point of view is that we don't know if the narrator is someone that we can trust because we're hearing it from their point of view. We can't see anyone else's point of view. So that's the question that you really want to focus on when you notice that it's first person is, can I trust everything this narrator is telling me? Are they reliable or should I be questioning them? This week, one of the stories that we'll work with is by Edgar Allan Poe, who uses a lot of unreliable narrators. And the excerpt below is from another Edgar Allan Poe story from The Telltale Heart. So I'm going to read it out and then I'll talk a little bit about how I identified that it's first person, then also that I'm asking myself that question, can I rely on this narrator? True, nervous, very, very dreadfully nervous. I had been and am. But why will you say that I am mad? The disease had sharpened my senses, not destroyed, not dulled them. Above all was the sense of hearing acute. I heard all things in the heaven and in the earth. I heard many things in hell. How then am I mad? Hearken and observe how healthily, how calmly I can tell you the whole story. So when I'm looking at this, it immediately jumps out to me that the narrator is using I. He says, I had. He says, I am mad. How then am I mad? So we know that he's talking in first person, and the thing that catches me here is that he keeps telling me that he's mad or that he's crazy, and he's trying to convince me that he's not crazy. So if someone has to convince me that they're not crazy, then I'm kind of worried that they might be crazy. So at the start of this story, I'm saying, maybe I shouldn't trust everything this narrator is saying, so I'm just going to keep an eye on that as I'm going forward and reading the story. So keep in mind, when you're looking at first person, see if you can trust that narrator, or if you're not sure if you can trust that narrator. The next form is second person. Second person is when the narrator refers to you as if you're a part of the story. They want to draw you in as if you're a character in that story. This is one that doesn't happen too often because sometimes if you're addressing the reader, it can kind of throw them off. So we'll use you and your for this one. I don't know if I've ever read an entire book that was written in second person. I've definitely read some short stories, but you won't see it that much. But example on the bottom, and as you're listening to it, be thinking, okay, they're actually addressing me. I'm the person who's in this story. Your name is John. As was previously mentioned, it's your birthday. A number of cakes are scattered about your room. You have a variety of interests. You have a passion for really terrible movies. You like to program computers, but you're not very good at it. You have a fondness for paranormal lore and are an aspiring amateur magician. You also like to play games sometimes. So if I'm someone who's into those things, this might draw me into the story. But being someone who's not really into paranormal lore or not really into being an amateur magician, I feel like it kind of throws me off. So second person, they're addressing you as if you're in the story, but you won't see it that often. So third person, this is the one with a lot of different types. In this one, the narrator is not a part of the story. You'll see this one really often, but there's 3 different types of third person. One's limited, omniscient, and objective. Those are the 3 different types. And within those, they'll use the same adjectives. So you can't just use adjectives to differentiate these. So the most common adjectives you'll see is he, she, her, they, them, and they're all listed on top. So keep an eye out for those. Once you decide that it's third person, then we need to dig a little deeper. So the first one we'll look at is third person limited, and that's when the narrator is limited to one character. So it's similar to first person that we're only seeing one character, but this person's not actually in the story. And our third person limited is where it tells the thoughts and the feelings of just one character. So I'll read the example at the bottom, and then when I go to the next slide, look at the difference between the same characters in third person limited versus third person omniscient. Tim was mad at Shay. He blamed her. Shay just left without saying anything. She left a note and then left him. So in here, we get the thoughts and feelings of one character. That's our character, Tim, because we see that he's mad, we see that he's blaming her, but we never get any thoughts or feelings from Shay. We just have the actions from Shay. So if you think back to last week when we were looking at characters and characterization, some of the ways that we learn about characters are by their actions, by their thoughts. So if we're only seeing their actions, that means that we're not in their head. So that's going to let us know a little bit that we might be in third person limited. So the next one is third person omniscient. And this one's different in that the narrator is all-knowing. And the word omniscient actually breaks down to those 2 words. So the prefix omni here means all or everything. And then the second part of omniscient means knowing. So our narrator is all-knowing, they're omniscient. So in this one, the narrator can tell the thoughts and the feelings of more than one character. A lot of times they'll let you into multiple different characters. So I'm going to read using those same characters that I used from the third person limited and look at the difference between the 2. So here I have Tim was mad at Shay. He blamed her. Shay knew Tim would be mad, but she wanted to live her life. So this time I'm getting both people's emotions. I get Tim was mad, he blamed her, then I also learn about Shay a little bit. Shay knew Tim would be mad. So in the first one, we didn't know what Shay was thinking or feeling, we just saw her actions. So in third person omniscient, they'll let you a little bit more into the characters. Our last one is third person objective, and this one's a little bit different between the 2 because in this one, the narrator does not reveal any character's thoughts or feelings. So the narrator operates mostly just on showing their dialogue and showing their actions. Their dialogue and their actions. So we'll miss out on the thoughts there. Sometimes that'll let you draw your own conclusions, but sometimes it'll make you feel a little more removed from the story. So here again, let's watch them and see how we lose their thoughts and we just get their dialogue and their actions. Tim slammed the door. He walked upstairs and read a note from Shay. He kicked her trash can and started crying. So I just have actions here. I have Tim slamming the door. I have Tim walking upstairs, I have Tim reading a note, I have Tim kicking a trash can, and I have Tim crying. So even though I'm not being told exactly what Tim's thinking or what he's feeling, I can put these pieces together because from the actions, I get a picture of what's going on here. So those are our 3 different types of third person. We have limited, omniscient, and objective. So when you're looking, just here's some tips on how to identify them. So first look for first or second person before you worry about objective, limited, or omniscient, because you want to decide, okay, are they using adjectives like I or like you? Can I say it's first or second person and not have to worry about all those different types of third person? And then after you figure that out, you might also want to ask, whose story is the narrator telling? Is he telling his own story? Is he trying to tell my story, like second person point of view, or is he telling someone else's story so that I know I'm in third person? And then also make sure that you're not getting tripped up by the difference between narration and dialogue. Keep an eye out for those quotation marks. So now that we've identified the 3, I just want to run through some practice before you go off and do some on your own. So for practice number 1, we're looking for which passage is written in first person point of view. So if you don't remember, first person point of view deals with I, or with me, and they're telling their own story. So that's what I'm going to look for. So option A says, Timmy Turner was rushing to get to school because he was going on a field trip. Timmy felt so happy and excited that he was going on his first field trip of the year. So in here I'm going to start looking for my adjectives. So I have a character, they use his name Timmy Turner. Then they say that he rushes to school because he was going on a field trip. So if they're using he, that's going to tell me that it's someone else's story, and this one's probably third person. I don't even have to worry about what kind of third person is, if it's omniscient or limited, because I'm just looking for first person here. So I'll read choice B and we'll see if that fits under first person. First, you'll need to wash your hands and gather all of your materials. Once you've done that, follow all of the directions in your cookbook. So again, this one, it seems like they're talking to me with these adjectives. They're saying you and your. So that one's going to let me know that it's second person point of view. And again, I'm not falling under first person. Let's just check the last one by process of elimination. It should be the last one, but let's see if they're using those adjectives, I and me. We are not as close as we once were, at least not since the thing happened. We were sitting in science class when I decided to look at her notebook. I noticed that she wasn't taking notes. So this one, is it through someone's point of view and they're letting us know what happens? We can see, and there's more than one person. They use we. When I decided, I noticed. So this one is through that first person point of view. So this is going to be my answer for this. Answer C is the one that is first person point of view. So I'm going to read out the last two, and then I'm going to ask you to answer those questions on your own for practice with this one. So practice number 2, what's the point of view of this passage? Lorraine, Cindy's mother, came out of her bedroom carrying a small mirror. She peered at her reflection as she walked, carefully examining the lipstick she'd just put on. Stop whining, baby. Just straighten things up before we leave for school. I'm late for work. I'm not going to school today, Cindy declared. She waited to see if her mother would get angry and insist that she go. Cindy was a freshman at Blueford High, and even though it was only October, she'd already missed several days of school. So our 3 options are all in third person. So we should be able to pick up from this that it's in third person. We have the adjectives her and she. So it's clearly telling someone else's story, but then you just have to decide, is it limited? Is it omniscient? Is it objective? So is it limited? Can we only see one person's emotions and thoughts? Is it omniscient? Can we see everyone's or more than one person? Or is it objective? We don't get any thoughts or emotions. So think about that when you're answering for practice number 2. And practice number 3, which passage is written in second person point of view? And again, I'll just write up some of the adjectives that we use in second person. You, your, so they might be addressing the reader. So I'll read our 3 options for practice number 3. A, Lisa always looked forward to the fall because of the Harvest Festival. Of course she loved the rides, but she really enjoyed the shows. B, what do you do with aluminum cans? Do you throw them in the trash, or do you recycle when you're finished with them? And C, as I waited patiently in line for my turn to go on the roller coaster, nervousness simmered in my stomach and threatened to make me sick. So those are our 3 practices. I went through one with you. I'll leave the final 2 to you. And I just want to circle back to what I wanted to accomplish in this lesson. So by the time you're done listening to this lesson and going through the practice, you should be able to define point of view. You should have a sense of the different types of point of view or narration. There's first person, second person, and then third person, which comes with limited, omniscient, and objective. And then finally, be able to identify the point of view in a passage. So you'll get some of this practice with the readings that we're doing this week. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Thank you for listening.